Okay, I think we have to start.
Yeah, we have to start. Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, very warm welcome to another edition of Evening Talk. Today is a very special event, the Ventilator Project. I'll brief you a short while from now. And also thanks to all the viewers who watched this program. We had a very excellent women convention this morning, and thanks for participating in a large number. And if you have missed any chance, you can log on to our website as well as YouTube and watch it. Before I introduce for the evening speakers, let me briefly remind you one last event. What's happening this month is sunlight is the new oil. David was Goliath's story. It's data is a new oil. We have an outstanding speakers. That is Vivek Subramanian is co-founder, executive director of Fourth Part Energy. His businesses grew from 4 crores to 500 crores over a period of 8 years. How did he do that? It's a timing or luck or it's endeavor. What did he do that? You're going to have all these questions answered. Is going to be in conversation with our own Mr. Shankar. Shankar is a former former founder of CAMS and is director of ACOS Investment Private Limited, member of the MI Management Committee. Coming to today's event, before that, very warm welcome to all the viewers watching this program live on YouTube, Facebook, our webinar, and also people who have joined us today here at MI Management Center for the hybrid event. Good to see you all on a Saturday evening at MI Management Center. This book is Ventilator Project, how IIT Kanpur Consortium built world-class product during India's COVID-19 lockdown. It's an excellent story, and we have outstanding both the authors with us. And the program for this evening is I will request Mr. Balraman to give introductory remarks. Thereafter, we'll officially launch the book after addressed by the speakers. Mr. Vinay Kama to lead the conversation with the authors. Now, may I request Vinay to please take your place on the dais, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause to Mr. Vinay Kama, associate editor of senior editor of the Business Line. You must have seen his articles regularly in Business Line, and another well-wisher of MMA. We do a lot of work together. Warm welcome to you, Vinay. Please take your seat. Warm welcome to each one of you again, and let me have the privilege of introducing Mr. Balraman. Balraman is IM MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, former MD of Ponds and former export director of Hindustan Liver, and also former chairman of CAMS, chairman of Footwear Designing, and is currently the director on the board of Delphi TVS and Indian Nippon Electric Limited, and is also Ponds president of MMA over 2 years. I now request Mr. Balraman to please deliver his introductory remarks. Over to Mr. Balraman.
Thank you, Vijay. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you. Group Captain Vijay Kumar referred to this being a very special event, and I would agree with that, and I will explain shortly why it is a very special event. On Saturday evenings, we have been hosting a series of Ponds veterans, talking to you about what they have been doing with their life, how they have been expanding and building on their heritage from Ponds. A heritage of not only very high competence, but one of character and culture. If there is one guy who exemplifies all that, that would be Shrikant Shastri. And you will shortly see how not only has he exhibited extraordinary competence, but also very great character and culture. Something that many youngsters of India can emulate and should emulate. What is so special about Shrikant? He is not satisfied with the ordinary. He always likes to choose something that is most difficult, most special, most challenging, and brings to his own creative solutions and also extraordinary passion and commitment. And of course, a very wide network of people who admire him and therefore very readily tie in with him to support him. So that is what is special about Shrikant. There are many other special things about him, but for today's event, this is the one that is most relevant. And Shastri, in Sanskrit means a scientist. Now, this scientist of management and leadership and creativity has tied up with another scientist, Professor Amitabh Bandyopadhyay of IIT Kanpur. Srikant, while he constantly creates change, has a habit of keeping in touch with our alma maters, whether it is IIT Kanpur or IIM Calcutta or Pons India. He relishes his relationship, or rather, these institutions do not let go of him. Professor Amitabh Bandyopadhyay is a very rare person, and you will see why when he starts talking to us and he's having difficulty with the connections. And
He's there. He's there now.
Oh, he's there. Warm welcome, Professor. So nice to have you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Venkatam.
Yeah, okay. So good to see you too. I'm also very happy to have Vinay Kamath. Of all the journalists that I know in my long career in business, Vinay is very special, and you will shortly discover why when he starts engaging with these two people on the project they have led. Now, what is so special about today? Why am I very excited? I never thought this can happen in India. Never. India has many things going for it, but definitely not speed, definitely not extraordinary achievement of this high level, of this high order. I often used to think that while democracy is a great thing for us, it's also a problem. Because of democracy, we constantly engage in questioning everybody else and downgrading everybody else's effort and not trusting anybody who is trying to do something good for this country. COVID changed all that. You know, unlike all of you, I think COVID is a great thing that happened to this country. I think COVID corrected many problems with our atmosphere. It reduced the emission of greenhouse gases. For the first time, we had an excellent monsoon, normal monsoon, and our roads were clean. Our lungs hopefully are cleaner. Part of the reason why they are cleaner is, of course, what these two gentlemen did. When you listen to what they have to say about the Ventilator Project, it is not the book alone that is important. Of course, more of you should buy that book and read it, because I want more of you to be inspired by it, inspired by the effort. I want more of you to know that India can do this. India does it. When India does it, I think the lesson for me from what happened in the Ventilator Project is that Indians rise to an occasion, a challenge. This is well known in sociology. I have read about this in sociology, that whenever there is an extraordinary challenge for the whole community, the community gets together, sinking all its differences. And that has happened because of COVID. The special thing about COVID is it attacks everyone, regardless of what is your caste, what is your religion, what is your wealth, what is your title, designation, education, it still attacks you. So everyone in India came together for this extraordinary challenge. But who leads the project is very important, and people dare to lead. They chose to respond, and they chose to bring people together. And it's important for us to listen to them, understand this process, and understand what will make India do many, many more such projects. And I do hope these two gentlemen will lead such projects. So who is going to start? Is it Srikant or is it Professor?
Yeah, I'll kickstart, and Amitabh will then add to it. So thank you. Vinay, do you want to say something before I go ahead?
We launched the book officially before we request the speakers to do that, sir.
Okay.
Now, may I request both the authors, Vinay, please obviously launch the book. It's a very nice book. Each one is already available. You can buy it, and it's for the picture.
Thank you. Thank you. That was nicely done, Group Captain.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a privilege, sir. Now I'll introduce Vinay Kamath. Vinay, I will briefly introduce you. Thereafter, you can take it over. And Vinay is Senior Associate Editor of Hindu Business Line. Prior to Business Line 1998, he did a short stint in television, and where he was the Chief News Bureau, Chennai. And he's the author of a best-selling business book on Titan, Inside India's Most Successful Consumer Brand. Over to you, Vinay, to take it forward, Mr. Vinay.
Thank you, Group Captain. Let me just introduce the two authors of the book today. So unfortunately, they're not present here at MMA, but as Group Captain says, it's a unique hybrid event where few of us are present here at the MMA auditorium, and a very fine auditorium. Srikanth and Amitabh, you should visit this.
Definitely.
We will.
So let me just quickly introduce both the authors and our guests for today. Srikanth Shastri is an alumnus of IIT Kanpur and IIM Calcutta and wears many professional hats. He's chairman, IIM Calcutta Innovation Park, and a board member at several other incubators. As an entrepreneurship evangelizer, he created the Chalo Startup web series and is on several government advisory bodies. As chairman, IIT Advisory Network, he trains and advises corporations on accelerated business transformation. Dr. Amitabh Bandyopadhyay is a scientist trained at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, New York, and Harvard Medical School, Boston, and IIT Kanpur faculty. So Srikanth, we would like both the authors to speak for about 10-12 minutes on the book, or rather on the project. How did you conceive the Ventilator Project, and why was it conceived, and how did you go about it? So have
Sure.
7 minutes.
Sure. Thank you, Vinay. Thank you, Dr. Balraman and Group Captain, for this warm welcome. Coincidentally, today, 27th of the year, 27th of March, is exactly a year from where a lot of this action was unfolding. 27 March 2020, if I had to describe that day and the world around us, I would use just two words: scary and uncertain. Why do I say that? Because although there were only 871 cases in India on this day last year, but globally there was panic, and that panic was affecting India also. We were already in the midst of our lockdown. The Western world had many more cases by now, and there was panic around hospital beds, and especially so about ventilator shortage. At that point of time, ventilators were considered the answer. And just to give you a sense, in the US, states were bidding against each other to procure ventilators, because of which the price of ventilators went up from $20,000 to $50,000 in just US. Now, we hadn't felt any of that yet in India when the task force got created between the 27th and 29th last year. As the task force got created on 29th of March and we moved into April, the government was swinging into action. The Prime Minister said, he directed the bureaucracy and said, let's make sure there's domestic manufacture of vital equipment, including ventilators. Please remove all the roadblocks. That was the Prime Minister's directive. So you can see how there was unfolding of panic across the world, and to say there was a sense of urgency would be an understatement. And here we were, 20 of us motivated Indians wanting to build a world-class ventilator at a point of time when all we had was 20 of us and two young engineers who had never seen a ventilator functioning in an ICU, but they had the courage and conviction because they knew electronics, they knew how to build robots, and they said, we can build a ventilator. So we're starting off with two young engineers. Global supply chains were shut, all factories were shut, and that is when the first product started getting created. So that's how I outlined the period when we started. So what happened during the next 90 days, I would say it's no less than a Bollywood or a Collywood or a Hollywood movie. because there was action, there was suspense, there was drama on every front. Why do I say that? Because everything was unknown, everything was uncertain, whether it is about product design, supply chain, the regulatory environment surrounding the product, manufacturing, and funding the project. Everything was unknown, everything was uncertain. But at the end, like in good Indian movies, there was happy ending. At the task force, we had great satisfaction that the outcome was good. We built a world-class ventilator. For India at large and for businesses in particular, we think there was a new model for the future on how to mobilize people and get things done in record time. If I had to answer one question, what was the secret formula? I would just say great team, great teamwork, and a higher purpose that motivated all of us together. Because MMA has an audience which comprises management and business professionals, I'd like to just touch upon a couple of things before I hand over to Amitabh. One is, what did we see with respect to the whole Make in India concept and manufacturing? We actually had a ringside view. We ran 3 different experiments once the product was designed or even as it was being designed. One, we tried to get it manufactured with a large PSU. Secondly, with a large private company. And third, with an SME. What did we find? That if we wanted to get done quickly, the PSU was not agile enough. The large private company, very interested, but they would only do it if there was a big order forthcoming from the government. Finally, there was a matchmaking between an SME and these young inventors, and that's how the manufacturing strategy unfolded. So we had a ringside view of what does it take to get manufacturing done in India, particularly in times of COVID. What makes us very, Mr. Balraman, I'd like to echo what you said. This is really a story about India's future. What excites us here? I'm going to take 2 viewpoints. One is from the viewpoint of startups, where there's a boom in India. I believe, and I'm going to make an extreme statement here, I believe that what we've seen here is a model for reinventing Silicon Valley in India. Why do I say that? Because after all, what is Silicon Valley? It's a small 120 square kilometer area in California where academicians, bright young people, investors, mentors, they all are compressed together in a small area where they interact with each other and create magic in the form of companies like Google, etc. And it's because there's huge osmosis that happens within that community. But COVID took that osmosis away because those people are not necessarily meeting physically the way they were doing before. Whereas in this ventilator project and in many other projects in India, we saw similar magic and osmosis could be created by motivated and talented Indians getting together in the virtual environment via Zoom, phone, email, and WhatsApp. So the magic of Silicon Valley has moved from physical location to the virtual world, and no country is better equipped to tap into that than India. So that's the exciting part for Indian startups, Indian entrepreneurs, and Indian enterprise. But I also believe that there's a big insight here for large corporations, once again, where MMA has a lot of members. Large corporations always struggle with innovation, to do agile innovation, the way the startups do. But I believe that now there's an accelerated innovation model that is unfolded as a blueprint out of this. Why do I say that? Because corporations can now say, we can set super ambitious goals. Just to give an example, the ventilator we built in 90 days, MNCs out of US or Europe built it in 18 to 24 months. So one of the people who was mentoring the task force from outside is an Indian origin person in New York. He's the global R&D head for a large medical device company. He says, normally that would take us 18 to 24 months. What you guys have done here in 3 months is actually a model that all of us MNCs should be worried about. And MNCs and large companies can learn from this to say, it should not take 18 months. It can be done in 3 months. What does it take to do something like this in 3 months? One, you need to bring a focus group of people together, even in normal times when there is no COVID. Group of people who can work together with a great culture, with a purpose to say, let's get it done fast. Some of these people can be from within the organization. Some can be from outside. Geography, no bar. It could be a bright Indian engineer sitting in California, India, anywhere else, working with management teams here. And finally, bringing this team together is one, but how do you orchestrate this? How do you create a cadence where people can take action every 24 hours and show progress rather than say, let's review it next month? It's all about saying, let's take stock tomorrow, remove roadblocks, set objectives and move forward. So the execution rigor will totally be different in a paradigm like this. But because of all these reasons, I think what excites Amitabh and me most, not that we got a ventilator done in 90 days, not that we wrote a book, but here's a model for the world, for the future, and India can actually take the lead in taking this forward. With that, I'm going to hand over to Amitabh to talk about this.
Okay, Srikant. So Srikant is the management guru, so he spoke from the management vantage point. And I'm a poor scientist, so I will talk about it from that vantage point. So, there has been a constant refrain in the popular psyche that Indian R&D institutions, the research institutions and the academia, they do not really solve problems, make products for the country or the society at large. I would then refer you to newspaper headlines in March and April, and you will see that there was this acute message coming through that we are in very deep trouble, as Srikant was talking about, scary and uncertain, because it was obvious that we will also be a victim to the pandemic, and we are grossly inadequately prepared. We did not have enough hospitals, enough ventilators, enough any of the medical devices. Forget about that. We did not have diagnostic kits. We did not have PPE kits, nothing. Then you read the same newspapers in July, August, and you realize that India became the second largest producers of PPE kits. India at one point of time was conducting 50 lakh diagnostics in a day. And while some of the more scientifically advanced countries, they were struggling, they had a lag period between 2 to 3 weeks for a sample to be tested. In fact, the reagents that are used for making the diagnostic kits, the raw chemicals, as a scientist, as a biologist, I use those in my lab every day, and those are also all imported. So when my labs created the first diagnostic kit, it's a startup company. When in IGIB Delhi, they created Feluda, which is now being held worldwide, that a technology that received the Nobel Prize this year, like in 2019, is being used by Indian laboratory to discriminate different strains of COVID-19, and that too at an extremely cheap price and at a very fast pace. The ventilator, of course, we are going to talk a lot about that. The mask, the N95 mask that I am holding in my hand, and which is being used by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Mr. Shashi Tharoor and Dr. Shashi Tharoor, and every known personality that I know of are using this mask. This also came out of a research laboratory of IIT Kanpur. Okay, so suddenly, as Dr. Balaraman mentioned, that COVID did a lot of good to this country. So you see that suddenly within a span of 6 to 9 months, Indian academia, R&D institutions, and the startup ecosystem delivered for the society like never before. So what changed? The answer is that because of relentless efforts of the governments for last 10-15 years, which has been intensified in last 10 years, I would say, the startup ecosystem has been well established. There are many good incubators around the country. There is plentiful of funding, mentor network, and all of that. So the ground was ready. Prior to COVID, what was happening, as someone who is associated with the startup ecosystem since 2012, that is 9 years, many of the startup companies or the founders, they would come up with problem statements that you would not, feel the pinch if those problems were not solved. Suddenly, during COVID, the problem statements that needed to be addressed were all over the newspaper headlines. So the problems were solved just like that. This is a fantastic news for India, Indian R&D and academia, because what it tells you that there is no dearth of technical talent or infrastructure in this country. What was lacking earlier was the clear communication between the society at large and the R&D community about what are the problems that need to be solved. And this, I would appeal to this audience of business people, corporate leaders, that it is high time we break down those barriers. The more we communicate between the corporate sector and the academia, magic will happen. Have faith in the talent of the Indian R&D community, and they will be able to deliver. That is the first point that I would like to make. Second is that when the ventilator was being developed, one mandate was absolutely clear from the task force. There were reasons for it, because IIT Kanpur decided from the word go that it will lend its name to the ventilator. Therefore, of paramount importance was the quality of the product. That could not have possibly suffered, because with that, not only the company would have suffered, even the brand of the finest engineering institution of the country would have suffered. Today, Noka Robotics is selling its ventilator not necessarily to the COVID-specific hospitals, but to good hospitals around the country in ones and twos like the normal time. Please remember that before 2019 June, 90% of the ventilators that were sold in India were imported. Post August, September, because of the mad rush to make ventilators, there is a huge inventory of ventilators lying in different godowns made by many companies, and they are not being sold because they are stuck with that inventory. But Noka's ventilators are still being sold simply because the word has gone out that this is a quality product and that can be adopted in the finest of the hospitals. I should not name names. I can tell you that absolutely top tier hospitals are adopting Noka's ventilator. This is a global standard product, but still comes at 1/4 or 1/5 the price of an imported high-end ventilator. So the message from that is that India cannot be another China. We cannot come to the fore by being another low-cost production center. Rather, what we should focus on is absolutely high-quality global standard products, which are also more affordable than the imported alternatives. I would love to see the day when Indian products will be considered at par with the famous European destinations, products from which we swear by. And the path towards that journey would be creating a very strict testing and regulatory regime, which will be strict but transparent and efficient. What I mean is that none of the quality standards should be sacrificed. It should be benchmarked against the global standards. However, there should be many installations around the country where this testing can be done to ensure that the products are being made of global standards. And it should not take a very long time, because when we talk about startup companies, then they are running on a shoestring budget. If they have to wait for 5 months, 6 months, a year to get the clearance, then certainly they will not remain viable. And finally, what I would like to end on a high note, that please remember that at the beginning of the pandemic, every country, including in the US, not request, orders were issued for large automobile manufacturers to produce ventilators at a footing. Same efforts were made in India as well. But none of these efforts were successful. But two 27-year-olds from alumni of IIT Kanpur could make that happen in just 3 months. So therefore, there is a lot of talent in the Indian academia and in our students. Please have faith in them. Let us join hands. Let us break down the barriers between industry and academia, and let's unleash a new India. That's all.
So let me take the conversation forward with the authors. I put in a question and I don't want to take it.
Vinay, too much disturbance, can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you well, Vinay.
Can you hear me now?
Better.
Yeah, speak up, please, and keep the mic closer. Speak up. Raise your voice.
Really? Now? Okay, am I audible, Srikanth?
Yes, very much.
So I read the book, and you've written it like in parts, like actually like a thriller, running down the days to the project and all. So looking back to a year ago, it was quite an audacious move. How actually did you take up this project and the two young entrepreneurs with no knowledge of medical electronics and no knowledge of how a ventilator works, and how did you actually decide to take up this project? I know there was a call from the Prime Minister and two incubators and all to take up this project, but it was sheer audacity on your part, and you pulled it off. But looking back on those months, how did you actually decide to go ahead with the ventilator?
Amitabh, I'll take the lead on this because he was there on day one. I came in 6 days later.
Yeah, so I'll tell you. So, as you mentioned that the call from the Honorable Prime Minister was relayed, and many startup companies raised their hand and offered to help and build products, and many products were made. But Noka Robotics stood out because they have been making robots that clean solar panels in a waterless manner for last 1.5 2 years. In fact, they are a funded company, angel invested company. They have now set up their manufacturing unit in Pune. All of that is correct. But when they raised their hand to make ventilator, as you rightly pointed out, I was a little startled. It was exciting, but I was startled. Now, what I did is I talked to them that how would you make it? Have you ever seen a ventilator functioning before? They said, no. I said, how would you make it? They said, see, sir, this is an electromechanical device where mechanical parts will have to be moved in a particular manner as dictated by the electronic circuit. And that's what we do for our robots as well. So all those technical aspects are there with us. What we need is to understand how a ventilator should work. So as a biologist myself and as someone who created the bio incubator of IIT Kanpur, I have a lot of doctors in my network. So I called a meeting with many of these doctors and some of my engineering colleagues from the institute. And we were discussing what kind of ventilator to be made. And, the doctors, that I have some very tech-savvy doctor friends. So Deepak was actually drawing the diagram that this is exactly how the ventilator will be made. And Deepak made one comment that was the game changer really, is that if you followed the newspapers in those days, many companies were making ventilators which are referred to as ambu bag. So Deepak said that if you want to serve the COVID patients, you must not make ambu bag based ventilators. You have to make ICU ventilators. Either you make ICU ventilators or don't bother at all. So with that message, I think the Noka founders were a little bit intimidated because they thought that an ICU ventilator will mean that someone will have to make a hole in the windpipe and the pipe has to go through. They were a little nervous. But then they read, and I'll fast forward just to save the climax for the audience. In parallel, when it was made apparent that IIT Kanpur is planning to help this company to make a ventilator, I was contacted by Department of Science and Technology Secretary, Professor Ashutosh Sharma, who is also my colleague. He is actually an IIT Kanpur faculty on lien to the government. He put me in touch with a global group that was helping people from around the world to make ventilators. In that group, there is an Indian origin professor from University of California, Santa Cruz, Professor Govind Rajan. So I made a contact with him. And 23rd is the first meeting we had with our faculty and Deepak Padmanabhan and other doctors. 25th, 7 p.m., I had a meeting with Govind Rajan. And he was trying to explain to the Noka founders that, you should make an ambu bag. It is very easy. I will teach you everything about it. You go about it like this. Then these two young boys, they said, but our doctor mentor said that you should not make an ambu bag based ventilator. Either you make an ICU ventilator or no ventilator. Professor Govind Rajan said, yes, that is correct. That is the right thing to do, but it is too complex a machine. Will you be able to make it? So and it was unknown to me, they took out a dabba from below and put it on the table and said, may I give you a demo of the ventilator, ICU ventilator that we have made? So in 48 hours, they actually used parts from a hobby store in Pune, where they had a pressure sensor that is used in UAVs, like drones. They had an aquarium pump as the source of air pump. With all these rather preliminary kind of components, they have actually made an ICU ventilator in just 48 hours. They did not sleep non-stop. And when Professor Govindarajan asked all sorts of probing questions about the engineering aspect of the ventilator, they answered those confidently. After an hour and a half, Professor Govindarajan said that, Amitabh, you got the right team, just go ahead and run with it. So that's how we got the confidence that this team can actually do it. Then next day I called Srikanth, and then the whole saga started.
Thank you, Amitabh. So Srikanth, this entire project was, spearheaded by a very unlikely bunch of, right from the young entrepreneurs to senior industry people and seasoned entrepreneurs, angel investors, and doctors. So function together, doing the entire project of 90 days when you developed this, what was the glue that held you all together? I'm very, very curious about that.
Sure. So first is obviously we put a task force together comprising 20 people who brought the right kind of skill sets. So we had 4 medical technology industry CEOs who came in with industry expertise. We had a supply chain expert. We had a manufacturing expert. We had people who knew regulatory policy. So we had the right ingredients. It was like building an IPL team. You need batsman, bowler, pinch hitters, death over bowlers. It's exactly like that. You put them together. But then it's not just assembling a bunch of stars together. For it to work like a star team, you need something more. Otherwise, RCB would have won the IPL by now. Virat Kohli and AB de Villiers are not enough. You need a way of working, a common purpose, a discipline, which makes you a star team. And in this case, it was 2 things, actually. One was a great culture. 20 people, completely non-hierarchical in the way they worked, mutual respect, even though the youngest was 23 years old, the oldest was 74, everyone respected each other for their expertise. That was one. The second was the fact that there was a higher purpose. Everyone knew it was a race against time to fight a battle to help the nation. And therefore, there were no egos coming. There was only one single objective. We have to get this done on time. We have to build a great product. So great culture, higher purpose, willingness to learn from each other, and an execution rigor where it was in our calendars, every day, 12 noon, Zoom call, 90 minutes, stretching to 120 minutes. People gave up everything else. You had a 24-hour window to fix things, go on to the next thing, fix things, go on to the next thing. So that cadence of saying within 24-hour cycle, we have to keep moving forward and showing progress was the final thing. So combination of these things, higher purpose, great team culture, right set of people, and an execution rigor. I would say these are the 4 things that made it happen.
But to take you up on your IPL analogy, I mean, there are other commercial considerations, right? They get a fat fee to actually come together to play. But here, obviously, you're doing all pro bono work.
Yeah.
So you're responding to a higher calling to actually get this project done.
No, absolutely. So when I was drawing the IPL analogy, it was only in the context of the balance of skill sets. And also, I'm going to take up your offer to bring in 2 more cricket analogies. One is the senior people. The 74-year-old is a Padma Shri. The 69-year-old is a Padma Bhushan, and many other CEOs and retired CEOs. They used an approach which I call as the Gary Kirsten or John Wright approach, light touch mentoring for the younger people, and not a Greg Chappell kind of mentoring. That ensures that the younger people are willing to listen and be guided. That was one. Second is osmosis. Everyone was learning from each other. And this is what happens in IPL also. There's a famous story that our friend David Warner, when he first came to IPL in 2009, Delhi Daredevils, he was only a T20 and ODI player, not a test player. Virender Sehwag told him that you have in you to become a test player. He said how, and he told him how. After that, David Warner went and became a great test player also. So I'm drawing the IPL analogy in multiple formats. Certainly the monetary angle is not there. Everyone was pro bono. The monetary angle was replaced by purely a higher cause in this case.
The no-cock ventilator emerged out of a crisis. In the sense, COVID was speeding through the country and there were shortage of ventilators, there was a crisis situation. Medical community needed ventilators at speed, and no-cock and the entire bunch of entrepreneurs, senior industry people all stepped up to the plate. But tell me, does it need a crisis like this to actually speed up product development like this in the country?
Amitabh, you want to take this?
Yeah. So as Srikanth mentioned in his opening statement, that we believe we have discovered a new formula. So Srikanth is experimenting in his own way at IIM Calcutta Incubator, where he is the chairperson. And I am doing the same at IIT Kanpur Incubator. So what is now going to happen is we have created a team of 10 very bright young BTechs and MTechs. That is the portfolio management team of IIT Kanpur. And collectively, we will identify some 6 to 7 companies every year that are in requirement of this kind of accelerated promotion. And this young team, just like in the Ventilator Project, will be the intermediary between the company and the senior mentors. They will act almost as part of the company that they are trying to promote. And we will get senior mentors typically from the IIT Kanpur alumni community, as well as our extended network, the members of the board like Srikanth, Dr. Srivastav, Dr. Rajay Chaudhary, etc. And may not be that we will be meeting once every day, the way we did it for the Ventilator Task Force, but at least once a week, so that we ensure that the product development is happening at a rapid pace, because now we have figured it out that actually that pace is possible. And if we can do it in a very rapid manner, the companies that we will promote will emerge as the first in the market, and they will have obvious market advantage. So I think, yes, it will be doable.
Okay, but Amitabh, till this project, which is incubated by IIT Kanpur, which took off and remarkable speed, and different elements came together. The government helped, and then different entrepreneurs helped with their skills, and working with government at great speed. Till this time, did IIT Kanpur incubate any other such projects which went on to achieve national scale?
Yes. So, IITs are really bad at communicating to the masses. So the most successful biopharma startup ever in the country is an IIT Kanpur product. The name of the company is CuraDev. CuraDev was started by an IIT Kanpur alumnus, and sitting within the chemistry laboratory of IIT Kanpur. In those days, the incubator was not as elaborate as it is today. So they used the space of the chemistry department, and they came up with 2 anti-cancer molecules, which were taken over by Roche for further development for a consideration of $550 million. And that is 2013. And since then, CuraDev has created many other molecules. They are now an independent R&D unit in Noida, and they are doing it. The company that is helping government of India to lay the bullet train track between Ahmedabad, Mumbai and Surat is called Geono. It is also an IIT Kanpur incubated company. They brought in a technology called LEADER technology, which is for terrain mapping, the first time in the country, and then they were taken over by GMR, and they are doing fantastic. So yeah, we have many such iconic companies that came out of the incubator. And many of you and your audience might already know about one of our companies called Pool. They make products out of flowers that are offered in the temples and then used to be thrown away. And now they make all sorts of products. Their agarbatti or incense sticks are very popular. I know that many of my acquaintances know about that product and without me advertising about it. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe IIT Kanpur should talk about such projects as well.
Yes, that's what we need to do.
Srikanth, I was question to you. See, this entire project, obviously, all of you very successfully in your respective fields did this project pro bono, and you did manage to raise, I think you say in the book, about 4.6 crores for the project through grants and loans as well. So suppose this project was to be approached commercially, what would it have cost to have made this project, made the ventilator of this quality?
So, I mean, if you look at what the 4.64 crores was used for, it was used for product design, certification, manufacturing, inventory, etc. So all those out-of-pocket expenses were actually incurred, and that's what got funded through the 4.64 crores that was raised. What came free was the time of the mentors. Now, I believe that going forward, that model can continue. Amitabh spoke about the fact that there's one experiment I've been running to replicate this model. So soon after the task force got disbanded, in October, we initiated an experiment with 5 bright startups at the IIM Calcutta Innovation Park, where for each of these 5 startups, we said these are promising startups. Can we put them on an accelerated track over the next 6 months? And we created 5 dedicated task forces. Once again, those task forces are being staffed by people on a pro bono basis. Some cases alumni, some cases faculty, some cases people from outside. We have people from, they're not based in Calcutta. One person is based out of Singapore. The ventilator task force model is being replicated by people coming in pro bono. How is it possible and what makes it sustainable? The answer lies in the fact that people who work in corporate sector, as they begin to retire in their when they turn 60, they're not retired from their mind or thinking. They have the skills and expertise to contribute for the next 15 years. That untapped talent, and people start thinking about it when they're in the mid-50s. That is the secret source of talent that we're tapping into to find these mentors. And they're willing to do it free. They want to do it because they want to remain active. They want to engage with young people. They're not in it for money. And therefore, this part, as far as I can see, will continue to remain pro bono. And therefore, the 4.64 crores that got spent in the ventilator, that's all will be spent. The time of experts will continue to come free. And that's the model we'd like to explore, actually.
So going forward, what would you say would be lessons that young entrepreneurs can draw from this project? I mean, in the sense, not all young entrepreneurs have mentors like they had in this project.
So the lesson is that this is a model that is possible. And the reason I'm saying it's possible is that all young entrepreneurs now, particularly, this is true for Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, NCR, you can find historically, that's where the mentors were there. But what this project taught us is that location does not matter. These guys were in Pune, the incubator is in Kanpur. Going forward, it doesn't matter. One of the great things that the government has done over the last decade is that there are 150 active technology business incubators. There are 52 active bio incubators, and these are across the country, across all our small towns. There's a pool of talent there waiting to be tapped. And now the mentors for them can be anywhere in the world. Location is not a bar any longer. That's the avenue that suddenly opened up. The outburst of talent that we've seen, again, I'm going to come back to the cricket analogy. The Mahendra Singh Dhonis and the Suresh Rainas who are from non-metro town, why did they happen? Because through the 90s and the first decade of the century, satellite TV brought to them vision of what world-class cricket is. what satellite TV did for cricket, 4G has done for entrepreneurs in small towns. They have aspirations, they have the skills, now they have access to mentors through a virtual model. So I just think there's going to be an explosion of entrepreneurial talent and energy now, particularly from small towns, and this is therefore a sustainable model actually.
So unwittingly, COVID has unleashed new forces of entrepreneurship.
That is true.
Absolutely.
Right. So you're saying the next wave of entrepreneurship, like we had immensely successful cricketers today have come from small town India. MS Dhoni is a classic example, and then you have many others as well now in the Indian team. So you feel the next wave of young entrepreneurs will come from small town India, and they can, from the corporate world to mentor them.
No, absolutely. In fact, even before the pandemic broke, for the preceding 3 years, Pune, Jaipur, Bhubaneswar, you name it, Trivandrum, Cochin, all of these cities were growing in terms of entrepreneurship. But the barrier was always physical location, opportunities to interact with experienced people, not there. And that barrier has now got broken. And coincidentally for me, the 3 incubators on whose board I am are not in the top 3 cities. They are in Pune, Kanpur, and Calcutta, which are not considered entrepreneurship locations. And I'm glad that I'm at the right place at the right time from that sense, actually.
Yeah, I can tell you, Mr. Kamath, that what is needed today, and I hope that's the lesson people get from the book, because we have elaborated on that, is to purposefully hunt, spend time on identifying the right problem to solve. That, in my opinion, is 70%. The remaining, finding the talent or the skills to solve that in collaboration with, finding the mentors, finding a good home as an incubator, etc., will all follow. People, will jump at the possibility of associating with a good solution. So therefore, it is the small town kids who have more exposure to the society. I hope you know what I mean, that kids in the metropolitan are more cocooned, while those in the small towns and villages of India, they are exposed to the harsh realities of life every day. As my doctor friend says, that our problem is that we are in India, there are just too many problems. And our opportunity is that we are in India, there are just too many problems to be solved. So if they are the ones who, like I can tell you, in last 1 year, we got 3 outstanding companies from Kanpur and Bhagalpur and places like that, which normally would not have been thought of by the metropolitan kids. So yeah, you are going to see a boom from the small town India.
Just to take a reference to what you mentioned earlier about how COVID has been a great leveler and impacting all and sundry. Today there was a news item saying Sachin Tendulkar has been tested positive.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
It doesn't spare Bharat Ratnas, or it doesn't spare the common man. Right.
No, absolutely, it does not. And obviously, this is not the forum for that. So everyone, and Mr. Balraman and I were discussing, people we know after 1 shot of vaccination have got COVID because they were possibly careless. So I guess that continues to remain focus for all of us.
Absolutely. Amita, you can get a sneak preview of what is the next blockbuster project coming out of IIT Kanpur's incubation center?
Yes, there are several, in fact. The one that I personally like the most and most appropriate for our world today is a kid from Kanpur, a mechanical engineer, is developing a completely compostable plastic from poultry waste. And the product is almost ready. I hope you will get to hear about it in April.
Okay, that's right. So where does this Noka Robotics or Nokak, they renamed the company as Nokak, right? So where does the project stand today? I mean, and where, how many ventilators did they sell? Who is
Sure.
That's really
Sure. So they have, before the pandemic broke, they had one line of business, solar robots. Now they have two lines of business, clean energy and medical technologies. Both businesses are doing well. As far as ventilators are concerned, as of February, they had deployed 750 units in the market. March has been a blockbuster. To use a cricket parlance again, they've hit a century. They actually sold 100 units in March. And therefore, the momentum continues. And the good thing is they sell in ones and twos to many hospitals across the country. It's not as though they got a bulk order for a 50 or 100. So there's great momentum. They're building that team. They moved to a new factory. So hopefully they will have a trajectory which they'll take them overseas as well. So they have it in them to become a big company, a global company. So we're all very, very proud of them.
I will add to it. So they have now figured out that a hospital, for them, procurement is a big problem, big hassle. So if you think of the ICU, the hospital will be reluctant to buy ventilator from one vendor and a heart monitor from another vendor or a full body monitor from another vendor. So instead, they would like to get a turnkey project done. So Noka is now focusing on the entire ICU product inventory at that same high caliber and an affordable price. And I think they have a very good vision. And many hospitals in the country, as you have seen, the health budget has gone up in this budget. Many hospitals in the tier 2, tier 3 cities are now trying to get fully equipped, and it will now be possible because of outstanding products coming out of companies like Nokak and others that came up during the pandemic. So yeah, they will be successful companies.
ICU equipment?
Yeah. Pardon?
Looking to make the entire portfolio of equipment?
Yes. That's the ultimate objective, to come up with the entire range of ICU equipments.
So did they finally get a large government order, because they have been the largest procurers, right?
So that's been the only one of the few things which has been disappointing for us, that the government order did not come their way. I think the big reason was the government orders got placed early in that quarter, April-May quarter, whereas their product got certified and approved only by late June. But we always knew that the government order is binary. Either you get it or you don't get it. And therefore, they didn't count on it. They said, if we get it, it's a bonus. We'll continue to focus for the longer haul. So, which is happening, but they did not get a big government order. And that's a whole saga by itself. And that's a whole chapter in the book.
Okay. So, Nokak, as it stands today, is fully funded to expand on ventilator business.
That's right.
So we have to see what the next big growth story is for them.
Correct. So I think two lines of business will keep their hands full. Both lines of business have big opportunities, both in India and overseas. The world needs products that are affordable and high quality, and that requirement is not limited to India. So they're going to have their hands full as they try and build a much bigger company.
Right. So, was it writing the book as well as doing the project both exciting for both of you?
It was a first-time effort on both fronts, actually. We've never managed a task force like this that is doing something in record time, and we've never written a book before. As it happens, each of these projects took 90 days, and I think each of these projects both have been very, very satisfying for both of us. I'm sure Amitabh will agree with that.
Yes, absolutely. Like, of course, For the book part, Srikanth had to drive me a little bit, but it was just as exciting. Now, in the hindsight, I am so happy that we did it.
Yeah, you have to bring it out to the world.
Yes.
Otherwise, like your other IIT Kanpur.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Right, Group Captain, any questions we have? We have some audience questions.
It was a quite inspiring story. I wish so many people who are watching this program must have immensely benefited. I think first we'll let the audience to ask the questions because we were privileged. You have come to MMA Management Center. We got Gangi Reddy from Incubation Center of Madras University. And after that, we'll pass on the mic to you. Then we also got a couple of questions which has come via compile. I'll hand it over to Vinay so that he can pick and choose which are the questions which is relevant. Over to Mr. Gangi Reddy is professor from University of Madras Incubator Center. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Gangi Reddy.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was an excellent presentation by Dr. Srikanth and Dr. Amitabha. Sir, Dr. Amitabha, I had the opportunity to listen to you in several meetings in Delhi. I come from Madras University. I had Technology Business Incubator of DST. Also, I had the PRISM scheme of DSIR, where we have been promoting innovations.
Yeah.
So far, unearthed at least 40 innovations from in this region. Some of them coming from IIT Madras.
Mm-hmm.
The products have really gone to the commercialization. I'm very happy to be heading these schemes operating from Madras University. Your success story of Ventilator Project within a span of 90 days is a great inspiration, motivation for all entrepreneurs, startups coming from all centers of higher learning. I'm also quite excited to hear your success story. I'm thankful for the presentation. It is a great learning to me, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. And thanks to the panelists who did a fantastic job of presentation today. And really a feather in the cap for the IIT Kanpur and their team. For having brought the very essential product during the time of COVID. And this will be appreciated by one and all, I believe. My question is, okay, now the COVID has led to the necessity. They say that the necessity is the mother of invention, they say. Now the biting necessity around us is energy shortage and the environmental impact. Is there any ideas or plans to take up these challenges, which is going to be very future-centric? Because our population is growing like anything, and energy requirement is growing also like anything. And secondly, the waste which you are generating all around the corners, like electronic waste, solid waste, how are we going to tackle it? This is my question.
Yeah, so I will take the waste part first. During the pandemic, when everybody was using PPE kits, I hope you understand that every PPE kit is basically a plastic product. And we were generating huge amount of plastic waste. So one of our companies, they just came up with a brilliant idea, and I hope you will get to see the product very soon in the market, to make construction building blocks out of that plastic waste. And once they came up with the idea, 2 faculty members from IIT Kanpur Civil Engineering Department joined hands with them to ensure. One is a structural engineer who will ensure that the structural property is identical to concrete. And the other is an environment engineer who will ensure that because plastic is embedded in it, there is no emission that is coming from the material which is harmful. So that is one example. On energy front, if you follow us on Twitter, the IIT Kanpur Technology Transfer Office, we just came up with a new design of solar panels. We have a company that has actually disrupted the battery technology per se. They have developed a new kind of battery using zinc, which is as energy efficient as lithium-based batteries, but much cheaper than lithium batteries, and has a completely green chemistry. So, innovators are constantly coming up. If we want to have a sustainable future, I see no option but to bank on the fantastic products coming out of the young innovators. And
I would add on just one thing to what Amitabh said. Amitabh spoke about it from the standpoint of innovators and incubators. There's a fair amount of investor money also available to support such ventures. But I think there's a realization that environment is not just necessity, but it can also be good business. And therefore, there is a concerted effort. And I think we should see some results in the years ahead.
Mr. Vinay, I passed all the questions.
Yeah.
Maybe relevant questions. Thank you.
There are quite a few questions, but much of it you covered during your presentation, so I won't go over that. This question you had touched upon, but maybe I'll ask you now. The question is, how can we chase this project chase big COVID-specific government orders, or should it remain content as a steady long-term player with a sales presence for small and big cities across the country, or should they do both?
I think any business in India, given that government is a big buyer in the context of healthcare, government orders can obviously provide a big boost. They will continue to try for it. It's not that they will not try for it. It's just that during those 90 days, they were not ready. And they didn't want to take a half-baked product and try and supply it to the government, as some other people tried to do. And there was a fair bit of bad publicity for the ones who tried to do it. But going forward, I think both these things are important. And come back to my cricket analogy once again, the ones and twos are important, but you also need to bat in a T20 style to hit those sixes and have a very good strike rate to score your century. So some of those big orders are also going to be important. So it will be a twin-pronged strategy. It's not either or.
All right, so just one last question to kind of wrap up the dialogue. In this entire process of developing the ventilator, how proactive did you find government? Normally you find that the government is a stumbling block, but in this sense, I think you've had several examples of proactivity on the part of the government. How proactive was it, and how helpful was it in pushing this project forward, apart from not giving you orders?
Amitabh, go for it.
So, I have never seen a more proactive government than what we have experienced during the ventilator project. The government has multiple organs, so Hindustan Life Care Limited, and that part did not work for us. And, that is a different story altogether. I will tell you that how the government helped. Imagine that when the product was being developed between 29th of March and early June, 9th of June, this was the strictest lockdown by the global standard, right? Everybody talked about it. So to develop a product which has some 1,000 components, what do you need to do? Minimally, you need to have your factory open. You have to get all those components from all around the world. You have to get your workers back from their respective places. They have to be fed. And all of that logistics was difficult due to lockdown. The Municipal Commissioner of Pune, Police Commissioner of Pune, Industry Secretary of Maharashtra, they just offered unlimited help. So every time we approached them, permits and permissions were just ready. That is one aspect. The other aspect that we wrote about in the book, elaborately, that this project would have been dead in the first week of April or second week of April, when for the first version of the ventilator, we were anxiously waiting for some components to come from Singapore. Singapore was about to enter into lockdown the next day. We already had placed the order. UPS was supposed to bring it to India. And suddenly they said they have central office order that they cannot deliver it to Maharashtra. If you remember, Maharashtra picked in the numbers first. So they declined to deliver. Then we started the scramble. So our supply chain person reached out to Invest India. Invest India literally deputed one senior person just for our task force. And this person contacted Ministry of External Affairs, METI, Electronics and Telecommunication, and our High Commission in Singapore. Our High Commission in Singapore did its own job and figured out that the only way the components can be brought to India is through a Singapore Airlines flight that was coming to take back some stranded Singaporeans from Bombay. Not only that, they figured out the freight forwarder, and in those days, banks were not operating. We could not pay the freight forwarder upfront. So our embassy, our consulate in Singapore, they stood guarantee for the shipment. And that's how the shipment came within the next 24 hours, and the whole project was online. We made the payment later. So this is how much the government was proactive and helped in the success of this project. And if this spirit continues, there is no way but India going to be absolutely on the top of the ease of doing business.
Okay, heartening to hear. Hope the government will be equally proactive in a non-emergency situation as well.
Yes.
Right. So thank you, Shrikant. Thank you, Amitabh.
Thank you.
Scintillating conversation and taking us through the development of the ventilator. Over to Group Captain Vijay Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Viren. Mr. Balraman, you got any closing remarks before we conclude the session, Mr. Balraman?
Yes, amazing journey, an outstanding event. Described, step by step with total excitement and involvement, and you brought it alive, Shrikant and Amitabh. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
In India, what we do, usually if you do something outstanding, we reward you by bringing you an even greater problem. Okay, so what is this greater problem that you have that you need to solve urgently and without delay? You need to solve a sociological problem. Why is it that we Indians do not wear masks? Why is it that there is a second larger, faster wave of COVID? And how can you help? Is sociology part of your repertoire, or it is not? You are just project leaders. I think your ability is to bring together necessary people, necessary skills, necessary understanding. So will you please help India solve this problem as well? You brought Indians together to face a common problem. Now this is the common problem, and I'm really disappointed to hear the central government saying that they note this with concern. Noting it with concern is no action. Now, what is the action? What can you do?
No, I think the mask one, so problems like this we should be able to find an answer, but it's not something that we've certainly looked at because it's a broader phenomenon. It's also to do with state governments and local implementation. But good point that you made. These are problems which go beyond just creating a product and taking it to the market. This is a sociological one, change of behavior, which is always harder. You flagged it off. Let's see how we can build it into our repertoire of things we do in future.
You will do it. If anybody can do it, you guys can do it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Balraman, for joining from Bangalore. Thank you, all the viewers. Thank you, Mr. Shrikant Sastry and Mr. Dr. Amitabh. So inspiring, and
Thank you.
Our appreciation from members of the managing committee and all Raman, and each one of you present here. We'd like to present.
Thank you.
This is still there. This is the only thing which is going to save us from COVID. And
That's very nice. Thank you.
on the road, we see most of them don't do that. And I think if we have to do this, if we have to stay and fight the COVID, this is how our team go around the places and educate people to continue to wear the mask. Thanks so much. Thank you all the viewers watching the program live, all the viewers from YouTube, Facebook, and also our live webinar. Thanks to Srikant Sastry for taking your time to be with us and further discuss on the theme of book. Thank you, Mr. Amitabh, Dr. Amitabh Bandopadhyay.
So,
Thank you. Please go ahead.
so sir, there is one submission from my end. Since you have done such a fantastic job of giving masks to 300 needy people, on behalf of the SIIC incubator, I will have 100 high quality N95 masks sent to MMA for distribution. This will be coming from the incubator of IIT Kanpur.
Thank you so much. We'll make sure it reaches the right people and want the people at low level also feel like they can wear it.
Yeah. So, almost sounding like a promotion. This is called Swasa N95 mask. It is produced by eSpin Nanotech, an incubated company of IIT Kanpur. And this is very, very good quality mask. So I will have it sent for you to distribute.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Noka Robotics, young entrepreneurs, all the very best from MMA and all of us.
Thank you.
We wish the project the best wishes. We hope we never have to use the product.
That's true. That's true.
So do we.
That's true.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Vinay. Thank you for being here today.
Morning. Thank you so much. Get back.
Thank you.
Wear your mask. Very disciplined, wearing all the time when you're staying as the mask. Thank you so much. And till we meet again. Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.